abyss beckons with a chilling call. Come closer, listen to the shadows draw. So subscribe and like, and don't be afraid to dive into the darkness where the shadows are laid. Tales from the shadows will spook your world. Join us on this journey, let your fears unfurl. Stay tuned, stay weird, and watch out for what lurks in the shadows.
Welcome, friends, to the dark and the deep, where whispers linger and shadows creep. Tales from the shadows, where legends arise, with ghostly stories and myths that mesmerize. The minds at TFTS Labs have been stuck on an idea for a while now, and have decided it's time to bring it to life. This tale is an ongoing tale that focuses on Denny Wyatt, who discovers he is one of the sons of Odin. Once when Odin visited Midgard, he had been in a relationship with Denny's mother. Once she told Odin she was pregnant, Odin explained that he would not be able to stay, so that he may protect his soon-to-be-born child. The first tale in this series is called Denny Wyatt and the Storm of Yggdrasil. The storm rolled in from nowhere. One minute, Denny Wyatt tossed a football with his best friend Marcus under the fading evening light in the school's empty parking lot. The next, dark clouds thickened above, swirling with a menace that made the hairs on the back of Denny's neck stand up. "What the heck?" Marcus mumbled, squinting at the sky as the wind whipped around them. The weather app didn't say anything about a storm. Denny shrugged, but an uneasy feeling settled in his stomach. He'd always had a weird sixth sense about storms, as if he could feel them before anyone else. This one was different, though. Angrier, alive. He turned to Marcus, a joke forming on his lips, but before he could say anything, a voice sliced through the gusting wind. "Denny Wyatt!" Denny spun around. A figure emerged from the shadows at the far end of the parking lot. It was tall, hunched, and covered in ragged fur, with eyes that glowed a sickly yellow. The thing's voice grated like rocks scraping together. "Son of Odin," it hissed, "your time has come." Denny's heart slammed into his ribs. Son of Odin? He had no idea what this was about, but instinct screamed at him to run. He grabbed Marcus by the arm. "Get out of here!" he shouted. Marcus looked from Denny to the creature and back again, confusion etched across his face. "Dude, what is that?" The creature, some sort of twisted wolf-man hybrid, let out a low, rumbling growl. Its claws scraped against the asphalt, and in a flash, it charged. Marcus froze in place, but Denny felt a surge of adrenaline. Somehow, he yanked his friend back just as the creature lunged, narrowly missing them. "Go, Marcus!" Denny yelled again, shoving him toward the school. "Get help!" Marcus finally snapped out of it, stumbling backward before taking off at a dead sprint. Denny turned back to face the monster, his mind racing. He was about to follow Marcus when the creature spoke again. "You cannot escape your fate," it snarled. "You are destined to fall." Denny clenched his fists, his heart hammering. Suddenly, a crack of thunder boomed directly above him, and the clouds opened, spilling sheets of cold rain. But something strange happened. Denny felt a wild energy coursing through his veins like the storm was alive inside him. The air crackled, and lightning flickered dangerously close. Before he could understand it, another figure appeared, a man with a wild grey beard and a long cloak carrying a spear. He moved with impossible speed, planting himself between Denny and the monster. "That's enough," the man commanded. His voice was deep, ancient, and full of power. The monster faltered, its glowing eyes narrowing. The man raised his spear, and with a flick of his wrist, the creature howled in pain before vanishing into the mist. Denny's knees went weak. He stumbled backward, the energy in his body fading as quickly as it had come. The storm began to break apart, the clouds retreating, leaving only a bruised sky. Who are you?" Denny managed to ask, his voice trembling. The man turned to him, his gaze piercing yet somehow familiar. "I am Mimir," he said, "an old friend of your father's, and we need to talk." Denny blinked, his mind struggling to keep up. "My father, you mean?" "Yes," Mimir interrupted, his eyes glinting with urgency. "You are the son of Odin, and your life is about to change forever." Denny could barely process Mimir's words. "Son of Odin?" he echoed, almost laughing at the absurdity. He glanced around the now empty parking lot, hoping Marcus would return with a teacher or the police, but all he saw was the departing storm and the fading mist where the monster had been. Mimir stepped closer, his heavy cloak sweeping through puddles left by the rain. Up close, the older man was both intimidating and ancient, like a piece of history that had somehow wandered into the present. He leaned on his spear, its shaft carved with symbols that seemed to shift and shimmer in the dying light. "Yes, Odin," Mimir confirmed, as though it were the most ordinary thing in the world. "The All-Father, ruler of Asgard. You are his son, Denny." Denny shook his head, feeling dizzy. "No way. My dad was just some guy. He left before I was even born." "My mom," his throat tightened, but he forced himself to keep speaking. "My mom never said anything about Odin." Mimir's gaze softened, if only slightly. "Your mother did what she could to protect you from this world," he said. "But you can't outrun fate. Your powers are awakening, and now that they have, Odin's enemies will come for you." Denny's mouth went dry. "Enemies? You mean that thing?" Mimir nodded grimly. "A Fenris wolf, a spawn of the great wolf Fenrir. It was sent to kill you, and won't be the last. The balance of the 9 realms is shifting. We must move quickly." The weight of Mimir's words pressed down on Denny, but a spark of defiance flared in his chest. "Wait a second," he said. "You can't just show up and tell me I'm the son of some god and expect me to drop everything. Why now? Why not? I don't know. When I was younger?" Mimir sighed, as if burdened by the knowledge he carried. "Odin had his reasons. You were hidden away, raised as a mortal, until the time came when you could defend yourself. That time is now. Your powers, control over storms and lightning, are beginning to manifest, making you both a target and a threat." Denny rubbed his temples, a headache forming. "So what am I supposed to do?" Before Mimir could answer, footsteps echoed across the parking lot. Denny turned to see Marcus running toward them, wide-eyed and out of breath. "Denny," Marcus called. "What's going on? I couldn't find anyone," and he stopped short when he saw Mimir, his eyes widening. Who's this guy?" Mimir straightened, his expression hardening. "Your mortal friend cannot know more," he said. "This is dangerous enough as it is." Denny opened his mouth to protest, but Mimir flicked his hand, and Marcus's eyes glazed over. "You will go home and forget what you've seen," Mimir commanded. Marcus nodded mechanically, turning and walking away, leaving Denny feeling a pang of guilt and frustration. "Hey!" Denny snapped. "You can't just mess with people's minds like that." Mimir gave him a long, patient look. "You'll learn that sacrifices are often necessary as a son of Odin." He gestured toward the woods that bordered the school grounds. "Come with me. There is a place we must go, a sanctuary where you'll be safe and learn the truth about your heritage." Denny hesitated, his heart torn. Everything was moving too fast, but deep down, he knew he couldn't ignore the storm that awakened inside him. Gritting his teeth, he nodded. "Fine," he said. "Let's go." Mimir's eyes gleamed with approval, and he turned toward the woods. Denny followed, each step taking him deeper into a world he had never known. A world of gods, monsters, and a destiny he had never asked for. The woods surrounding the school seemed darker than usual, the trees towering like silent guardians watching Denny's every move. "So," Denny ventured, trying to fill the uneasy silence, "where exactly are we going?" Mimir didn't break stride. "To a place where you can learn to survive," he replied. "A school for those like you, demigod children of the Norse gods. It is hidden from mortal eyes, though your kind has a name for it, Valhalla Prep." Denny raised an eyebrow. "Valhalla Prep? Sounds like the kind of place with yearbook photos and pep rallies." Mimir almost smiled. "I wouldn't expect pep rallies, but yes, it is a place of learning. It's where you'll begin to understand your powers, but you must be prepared. It will not be easy." Mimir gestured to the archway. "Step through and be wary. Valhalla Prep is no ordinary school. The trials here will test your strength and heart." "What is this place?" he whispered. "This," said Mimir. Appearing beside him, is Valhalla Prep. "Welcome, newcomer," she called, laughing. "Hope you survive your first day." Denny swallowed hard. "That's not reassuring." "Denny Wyatt," a voice called, commanding and warm. "Odin," Mimir said with a nod. "Denny," he said, his voice carrying a weight that seemed to resonate in Denny's very bones. "You have much to learn, but first I owe you an apology." Denny clenched his fists, a rush of emotions flooding him. "An apology?" he repeated, his voice shaking. "You mean for abandoning me and my mom? For leaving us to deal with everything alone?" Yes, he said. I made choices to protect you, choices that brought you pain. But now, there is no more hiding. The realms are in danger, and your strength will be needed. Show me, he said. Show me the power that flows in your veins. Time to find out what I'm made of, he whispered, and the storm answered. Over here, Denny shouted, drawing the beast's attention. Impressive, but not enough, a voice called. Name's Freya, by the way. Try to keep up. Keep it off balance, she yelled. Nice work, Storm Boy, she said with a grin. Looks like you've got more power than most newbies. Thanks, he muttered. I think. You've done well, Odin said, his voice resonating, but you are far from ready. What was that thing, he asked. Why was it here? An escaped trial beast, Odin replied, his tone grave. A test meant for more seasoned students, not for those just arriving. Its appearance was no coincidence. Someone, or something, is trying to disrupt the balance here. Another sabotage attempt? We've had too many lately. Indeed. And this attack has confirmed my suspicions. There are forces at play that seek to undermine us, and they will stop at nothing. You must learn quickly, my son. The storm within you is powerful, but it is only one of the many things you must master. Fine, Denny said, meeting his father's gaze. Tell me what I have to do. First, you must train, but you must also uncover the mysteries surrounding the attacks on Valhalla Prep. There is a darkness stirring, and only together can we face it. Denny woke up sore and groggy the following day, every muscle protesting from the previous battle. He rubbed his eyes, trying to remember where he was. Instead of his familiar bedroom, he was in a stone-walled dormitory room at Valhalla Prep. The bed was a sturdy wooden frame, with furs instead of blankets. Denny sat up, wincing at the stiffness in his limbs. His mind was still reeling from everything that had happened. Mimir, Odin, his newfound powers, and the monster attack. A loud knock on the door startled him. Hey, Storm Boy, Freya's voice called. Get up! Breakfast starts soon, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. Denny groaned, but the thought of food made his stomach growl. He quickly changed into the clothes left for him, a simple tunic and sturdy pants. When he opened the door, Freya was waiting. Looking better, she said with a grin. Ready for your first day as a demigod in training? Not really, Denny admitted. But I don't think I have a choice, do I? Freya laughed and clapped him on the back. Nope, let's go. They made their way through the winding stone corridors of Valhalla Prep. Freya pointed out important landmarks, the armory, the healing wing, and the Hall of Runes. So, he asked as they walked, how long have you been here? Freya shrugged. A couple of years. My dad's Tyr, the god of war and justice. Denny frowned. Wait, 13? How old are you now? 16, she replied, flashing him a mischievous smile. Same as you, right? They finally reached the dining hall, filled with long wooden tables. The smell of roasted meat, fresh bread, and spiced cider made Denny's mouth water. Freya guided Denny to an empty spot. Rule number 1, she said, piling food onto her plate. Eat as much as you can. You'll need the energy, trust me. Denny loaded his plate with food when a loud crash made everyone fall silent. A tall boy with dark hair and piercing blue eyes stood over a shattered clay pitcher. Well, the boy sneered. Looks like the new kid finally decided to show up. Freya whispered. That's Eric, son of Thor. Watch out for him. Eric approached. So you're the one everyone's talking about, son of Odin, huh? He smirked. I expected someone a little more impressive. Denny's fists clenched. Yeah, well, sorry to disappoint, he said, keeping his voice steady. Eric's smirk deepened. This place is about strength. Eric turned and strode off. Denny exhaled, not realizing he'd been holding his breath. Freya gave him a sympathetic look. Don't let him get to you, she said. Denny forced a smile. Thanks, but I will have much to prove. Before Freya could respond, a bell tolled, signaling the start of morning training. Freya stood, her eyes alight with excitement. Time for combat practice, she said. You're about to see just how intense Valhalla Prep can get. Denny's stomach churned with a mixture of dread and anticipation. He followed Freya and the other students, knowing this was only the beginning of his trials. Denny sat on a rough stone bench at the edge of the training field, watching the other recruits practice. His arms ached from his sparring match with Eric, and his pride stung even more. Freya sat beside him, a silent but comforting presence, as Denny replayed the humiliating encounter repeatedly in his mind. He gripped his warhammer, the runes along its handle still faintly glowing with energy. Whenever he thought he understood his powers, they seemed to backfire or fizzle out when he needed them most. The storm inside him felt wild and unpredictable, more like a curse than a gift. Freya broke the silence. You know, you're not the only one who's struggled with their abilities. When I arrived, I almost burned half the training field trying to summon fire. Denny managed a weak smile. Really? Freya nodded, her face lighting up with a nostalgic grin. Yeah, it was a total disaster. But I had to learn that my power wasn't just about force. It was about control. And trust me, you'll figure it out too. Denny sighed. I wish I had your confidence. Eric's right. If I can't handle basic training, how can I help stop whatever's coming? Before Freya could respond, a familiar voice cut in. Doubting yourself already, are we? Mimir appeared, leaning on his staff as he hobbled toward them. His ever-watchful eye took in Denny's hunched shoulders and the hammer in his lap. You've barely scratched the surface of your potential, young Wyatt. Power without control is dangerous, but you're not alone in learning. Denny frowned. So, what am I supposed to do? Just keep getting knocked around until I figure it out? Mimir's eyes twinkled. No, my dear boy, you need guidance, and lucky for you, I've just the thing. He gestured for Denny to follow. His movements surprisingly spry for someone so old. Denny exchanged a glance with Freya, who shrugged. Come on, Freya said, giving him a nudge. Mimir usually has something up his sleeve. Reluctantly, Denny followed Mimir away from the main training field and into a quieter, wooded area. The trees grew close together, their trunks thick, ancient, and calmly settled. Mimir led them to a small clearing where a circle of carved runes had been etched into the ground. This, Mimir announced, is a meditation circle, an ancient method of connecting to your inner power. Sit in the center, Denny. Denny hesitated. Meditation? I thought I needed to learn to fight, not sit around. Mimir chuckled. Oh, there will be plenty of fighting later, I assure you. But you'll be useless in battle if you cannot learn to channel your power without it controlling you. Now sit. Feeling a little foolish, Denny obeyed, settling into the circle. The runes seemed to hum with energy, and the ground felt warm beneath him. Mimir stood at the edge, his expression suddenly serious. Close your eyes, he instructed. Breathe in slowly. Feel the storm inside you. Do not try to suppress it. Acknowledge its presence. Denny closed his eyes, drawing a deep breath. The air felt thick, and the storm within him crackled to life, a restless, swirling force that pulsed through his veins. It felt wild, like a caged animal. Good, Mimir said. Now, imagine the storm as a river. Powerful, but flowing in one direction. Picture yourself guiding, not controlling, but gently steering its course. Denny's brow furrowed. Was he guiding a river? How was he supposed to do that? He took another breath, trying to picture the storm inside him as something he could direct. At first, the energy bucked against his efforts, lightning sparking in his mind's eye. But gradually, he felt the currents begin to shift, just slightly, as if responding to his thoughts. The runes around him flared, and Denny felt a power surge. His heart raced, but he focused, breathing deeply and trying to keep the energy steady. Mimir's voice came again, softer now. Yes, that's it. Control is about harmony, not domination. Remember that. Denny felt a strange sense of balance, the storm energy pulsing but no longer overwhelming. He opened his eyes, and the rune's glow faded, leaving the clearing bathed in gentle sunlight. He let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Freya clapped her hands, her face lit with excitement. You did it! Well, at least you didn't blow anything up this time. Denny chuckled, the tension in his chest easing a bit. Thanks, I think. Mimir gave him an approving nod. You have much to learn, but this is a start. Practice this daily, and you'll soon find that the storm answers your call, not the other way around. Denny stood, feeling more hopeful than he had in days. Maybe he really could learn to control his powers. And with the looming threats to Valhalla Prep, he knew he'd need every ounce of strength and control he could muster. Just then, a horn blast echoed through the forest, a deep and urgent call that sent chills down Denny's spine. Freya's smile vanished and she grabbed the hilt of her dagger. That's the warning horn, she said. Something's wrong. Mimir's eyes darkened. It seems your trials are not yet over, young Wyatt. Come, quickly. Denny's pulse quickened. The storm inside him stirred, no longer calm but ready. Whatever was coming, he knew this was just the beginning. Denny sprinted after Mimir and Freya, the warning horn's deep, haunting echoes reverberating through the woods. Adrenaline surged through his veins, and he could feel the storm within him waking up, crackling with nervous energy. They burst from the trees onto the primary training grounds, where chaos had already unfolded. Students scrambled to arm themselves, grabbing swords, axes, and shields from the racks. Instructors barked orders, trying to maintain some semblance of control. The sky above had darkened, swirling with ominous clouds, and the air felt tense. Denny's heart pounded. Whatever had set off the alarm wasn't just a minor disturbance, it was something dangerous. Freya skidded to a stop beside him, her face pale but determined. "We need to get to the front gates," she said. "That's where the threat is coming from." "What kind of threat?" Denny asked, his voice tight. Before she could answer, a resounding crash echoed from the direction of Valhalla Prep's towering front gates. A shockwave rippled through the ground, and several students stumbled, weapons clattering. Denny felt the impact in his bones. He and Freya exchanged a worried glance before pushing through the crowd of recruits and warriors. When they finally reached the gates, Denny's eyes widened in disbelief. The gates, made of enchanted iron and reinforced with runes, had been thrown open, their hinges twisted and shattered. Standing in the ruins was a massive figure clad in dark, jagged armor. The intruder's helmet concealed their face, but their eyes glowed a nasty red, and shadows seemed to writhe around them like living things. Denny's gut twisted. This was no ordinary enemy. Instructor Balderson stepped forward, his war axe gleaming in his hands. "State your name and your business," he demanded, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. The armored figure let out a low, rumbling laugh. "Valhalla Prep," they intoned, their voice distorted and echoing. "A nursery for the gods' half-blood children. How quaint." The figure raised a hand, and dark energy crackled between their gauntleted fingers. "I come bearing a message." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, and Balderson's grip on his axe tightened. "What message?" he demanded. The intruder's eyes narrowed. "The time of the old gods is coming to an end. The sons and daughters of Asgard will fall, and the 9 realms will bow to a new power. Your little school will be the first to burn." With a sudden, fluid motion, the figure hurled a bolt of dark energy toward Balderson. The instructor raised his axe just in time to deflect it, but the force of the blast sent him skidding backward. Several students screamed, and chaos erupted as warriors prepared to defend the academy. Denny felt the storm within him roar to life, lightning crackling at his fingertips. Freya drew her daggers, her jaw set with determination. "We have to help," she said, her eyes flicking to Denny. "Think you're ready?" Denny's hands tightened around his warhammer, the runes flaring with electric blue light. His fear was still there, but so was the growing sense of purpose. He took a deep breath, feeling the storm energy flowing more smoothly than before. He might not be fully ready, but he knew he couldn't stand by and watch his new home be destroyed. "Yeah," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. "Let's do this." Freya nodded, and together they charged forward. The intruder swung their armored arm, sending another blast of shadowy energy toward a group of students. Denny reacted instinctively, swinging his hammer and channeling the storm within him. Lightning arced from the hammer's head, colliding with the dark magic and dissipating it in sparks. The intruder turned their glowing red eyes on Denny, and a chill ran down his spine. "Ah," they said, their voice dripping with dark amusement. "The son of Odin, I was hoping to see you." Denny swallowed, but he stood his ground. "You're not going to destroy this place," he said, trying to sound braver than he felt. "Not while I'm here." The figure tilted its head as if considering his words. "Bold," they said, "but foolish." They raised both hands, and the shadows swelled, forming jagged, tendril-like shapes that lashed out toward Denny and Freya. Freya dove to the side, rolling back to her feet with her daggers at the ready. Denny barely had time to react, swinging his hammer and summoning a wall of lightning to intercept the tendrils. The energy crackled and hissed, and he could feel the strain of holding it steady. Sweat beaded on his forehead. "Denny," Freya shouted, "we need to push them back." Denny gritted his teeth. He could feel the storm's power coursing through him, but he was still learning to control it. He took another breath, focusing on the rhythm of his heart and the current of energy in his veins. The storm wasn't just a wild force, it could be directed. He stepped forward, swinging his hammer in a wide arc. A lightning surge shot out, striking the ground at the intruder's feet. The figure jumped back, the shadows recoiling from the light. Freya took the opportunity to dart in, her daggers flashing. She landed a strike on the intruder's armor, but it barely left a scratch. The armored figure snarled, their patience wearing thin. They clenched their fists, and the shadows around them condensed into a massive, spear-like weapon. "You dare defy me?" they roared, their voice echoing with fury. Denny's pulse quickened, but he held his ground. "I won't let you hurt my friends," he said, the runes on his hammer glowing brighter. The storm was his to command, or at least he hoped it was. He had to make this count. The intruder lunged, the shadow spear aimed straight at Denny. Time seemed to slow as Denny raised his hammer, channeling every ounce of energy he had. Lightning surged forward, meeting the shadow spear head-on in a blinding explosion of light and darkness. The force of the clash sent Denny stumbling backward, and the shockwave rippled through the air, knocking several students off their feet. The intruder was still standing when the light faded, but their shadows were weakened, flickering like dying flames. Balderson seized the moment, charging forward with a battle cry and swinging his axe with all his might. The intruder barely managed to block, their footing unsteady. Realizing they were outnumbered and outmatched, the figure let out a snarl of frustration. "This isn't over," they hissed, their eyes blazing. The shadows around them coiled and swallowed them whole, and in a swirl of darkness, they vanished, leaving only the ruined gates and a sense of foreboding in their wake. Denny sank to his knees, exhausted but alive. Freya rushed to his side, her eyes wide with concern. "Are you okay?" Denny nodded, though his limbs felt like lead. "Yeah," he panted, "I'm okay." Balderson approached, his expression grim. "You fought well," he said, his voice heavy. "But this was only the beginning. Whoever that was, they'll be back, and next time, they won't hold back." Denny met Balderson's gaze, the weight of his words sinking in. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. And if he was going to protect Valhalla Prep, and the people he cared about, he had to be ready. He had to master the storm within. This tale continues next time on Tales from the Shadows, so be sure to like and subscribe. And until next time, stay tuned, stay weird, and watch out for what lurks in the shadows.
This has been Tales from the Shadows, where the shadows speak the stories that will make you weak. Join us on this journey into the unknown. Tales from the shadows, where fear is shown. So subscribe and like, and don't be afraid to dive into the darkness where the shadows are laid.